leader. Maybe you've been placed in a leadership role and you found yourself in a moral dilemma, in an ethical dilemma where you are simply not sure exactly what it is that you want to do, what's going to be the best decision, how is this going to work out? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about moral courage and we're going to talk about why this is a silent skill that helps to define great leaders. Now, you want to watch this video until the end because I'm going to share with you various secrets that I have learned over the past 20 years so that when you are in these dilemmas where you need to develop that moral courage, the ability to make those right decisions, you have a pretty clear path in terms of how to do it. Now, I want to give a special shout out to Cat 23rd for this topic. Cat, this is a wonderful topic that will benefit so many leaders. I want to give you a format of the live today. We're going to talk about the definition, a little bit about moral and courage, put them together. We're going to talk about three scenarios. Now, there's a lot of scenarios that come up when this is an issue, but I'm going to highlight the top three that I've seen when leaders start to struggle a little bit with making that right decision. And then we're also going to talk about specifically how this can impact you. What can you do to make the right decisions? Let's go through that. And then, if we have time, I'll share with you a personal story that happened to me when I was in that situation and I had to make a very, very difficult decision. Now, if you are new to me, welcome. And if you are one of my absolutely amazing subscribers, welcome back, friends. This channel heavily focuses in on advanced communication skills and strategies that will help you to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. Whether you are a woman in leadership, man in leadership, or you are thinking about leadership, I guarantee you that you are going to learn some priceless insights from this channel. Feel free to take a look at the playlist and learn how to start communicating under pressure. Now, I also want to say if you are a woman in leadership, I provide executive coaching and consultation services to you. Feel free to contact me at exciteexcellence.org so we can help you be able to make a couple of changes there. All right, let me go to the chat real quick. GTXOX 2000. Hello, friend. How are you doing today? Good to see you. Now, for those of you watching the live, welcome, welcome. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you all are joining from today. And have you ever been in a situation where you had to make a decision that you felt was not right? Or maybe you felt it was right? Let's know. Let's talk about it in the comments below. Okay, let me see what's going on in the chat. GTXOX says, hi, I'm back again. Hello, hello. DCQN9WB says, sup, girl. Hello, how you doing today? And DC is from the Netherlands. Wood pie. Okay, wood whoop die. Hello, welcome, welcome. Hope you're doing well today. Edison Rosales 1232 says, hi, guys. Hello, Edison. And we have, let's see, I am a Shia follower of Ali IBN, Abi Talib from Iraq. Okay, well, hello, welcome, friends. How y'all doing today? Let me know if you've ever been in a difficult situation where you had to make a hard decision that seemed like it was not quite the best decision, but you had to make it anyways. Let me know in the comments below. Let's have a really good discussion today. And I'm going to talk to you about a couple aspects as it relates to moral courage. Okay, we have Ches, man of culture. Hello, Ches. High five, friend. How you doing today? Ches says, hello. Yes, I have made decisions that I felt were not right, but were necessary. Yes, Ches, absolutely. And if you all want to talk about some of those decisions you've made that you feel comfortable sharing, you're welcome to do so because a lot of my audience tends to watch the videos in the replay. So we're here to support everybody. We have a lot of people from other parts of the world, and I want to help everyone be able to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure and being able to make those hard decisions, as Ches mentioned, even though it's right, you feel like it's not right, but it's necessary, is a part of being able to communicate under pressure. All right, I want to say hello to Barbie Vlog, says hi from the Philippines. Hello, Barbie. Hope you're doing well today. We have Subhash Chander. Hello, welcome. Jada, the bad baddie, hello, says hello. Good to see you all today. So let's talk about this moral courage. Let's put the two words together first. Moral courage. Moral is going to be your ability or a situation where you have to make a right or a wrong decision. So we have that out the way. Now, courage itself is the perseverance, your ability to keep moving forward, even though you may feel afraid or you may not feel as confident as you'd like to feel about a specific topic. Now, let's talk about the scenarios that I have seen so far where a lot of leaders tend to struggle with moral courage. You see this a lot you may see it in your communities, you may see it in the roles that you are in, you may see it in the organizations you work for or in your businesses and etc. We all see these situations where we feel like someone made a really bad decision. Like this is morally wrong. Why is this such a bad decision? If you've ever experienced this or you've noticed someone make a bad decision, then put it in the comments below. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you felt was wrong about this decision and why you felt like maybe they didn't have the moral courage to develop this or maybe make the right decision. Now, as I mentioned, moral courage, we put it together for those of you watching live. Welcome, welcome. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you all are joining from today. We're talking about hard decisions and how do you make them. This is the best place for you to be out on YouTube. If you're liking this content so far, you absolutely should subscribe to the channel. Okay, A Ghost 518. Well, hello, A Ghost. Welcome back. How you doing today? A Ghost 518 says, I've learned everything I know from this woman. She is like a sensei to me. Oh, well, thank you. Well, I appreciate you being here and coming back. I'm so glad that we were able to help you. And if you have any questions or anything comes up like that, I'm here to support you. I want you to be that person that can communicate in a way to where people notice you and you stand out from everybody else. So one, let's talk about this. We talked about moral and courage. We put both of them together. Moral, for those of you who just joined, is your ability to make the right and wrong decisions. Okay. This second part of it is courage. So, courage is going to be your ability to persevere. There's a couple scenarios, and you all let me know what you think in the comments too. There's a couple scenarios where I see people really start to struggle with moral decisions where they just don't make the right one. Typically, it centers around 3 areas, and there's a lot more, but I'm just gonna highlight 3. One, usually I see leaders struggle with making or having moral courage when it relates to money. So when finances are involved, money is involved, sometimes people may not make that right decision. Would you agree? Let me know in the comments below. Number two, another reason or another scenario that I see leaders struggle with moral courage is when it has an impact on their reputation, meaning that they're going to look bad in front of people if they say this, or they're going to look bad in front of people if they do that. I see a lot of leaders struggle with moral courage when it comes to that specifically. Now, a third scenario that I see a lot of times that happens when moral courage is a bit of a struggle for people and they don't know how can I make the right decision or not has to do with the interest of the group or their own interest. How many of you have ever seen or been in situations where maybe one of those 3 or all 3 factored into a decision you're trying to make? Maybe you're in a situation, and I'll give you some scenarios here also, but maybe you've been in a situation where financially it would have been better for you to not do whatever it was, but you knew that was the right thing to do. Or maybe you did the opposite. You knew it was the right thing to do, but you didn't do it. It happens to a lot of leaders. When you see on the news or in your organizations or in your communities when people are embezzling funds and embezzling money or making really bad decisions, all of this comes into play with these scenarios I'm talking about and why people struggle with moral courage. Now, moral courage is like anything else as it relates to that very high stakes, high pressure communication that we heavily focus on in this channel. It is your ability to develop an executive presence and to conduct yourself as a person who is going to do the right thing. Why people struggle with this so much is because sometimes we don't want to deal with the repercussions of the right thing. One of the items that was mentioned earlier that Ches talked about, Ches says that he has been in situations where there's been decisions that have been made that maybe did not feel right, but this is the best decision that had to be made. This is exactly how you start to build moral courage. It is like any other muscle. you have to train it just as if we talk about challenging situations, managing your emotions under pressure, etc. You have to develop these skills. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, you're more than welcome to do so. There's a lot of videos here that I have on this channel in my playlist that heavily focus on developing these muscles that you need to communicate under pressure. So let me go to the chat really quickly before we talk about that specifically. Edwin Madera says, okay, deodorant is illegal in India, it's punishable by death. Is that true? I'm not sure. Edwin Madera 8755. I don't someone let me know if that's true. That seems different, but let me know if that's true. I haven't heard of that, Edwin. So that's the reason why I asked. But nonetheless, we talked about a couple scenarios. So when you're seeing anything deal with money, embezzlement, money disappearing, some trading that's happening, all those things come into play. When someone's reputation may be impacted, this is when you start to see people make bad decisions and you look at them and you wonder, why are you making such a bad decision? But sometimes there are previous relationships that have happened. There may be information that someone has on someone and they are essentially blackmailing them to make sure that they do not do or their information or their situation is not being released. All of that factors into play specifically as it relates to this topic. Now, another aspect of this that can really factor into this as well, I've talked about, is the best interest of everybody else. So I want to say hello to Ed Brooke. Hello, Ed. High five, friend. Good to see you again. One of the things that comes up very often as it relates to this topic is the best interest of someone else. So when you are in those situations, you may have a really good interest. You may have a really good interest in yourself, but you know that this particular topic is going to cause you to have problems or cause the team to have problems as well. So this is a couple of things that tend to happen quite a bit. Give me just 1 second. My kids, for some reason, because I'm live, they want to make sure they talk to me. So hold on just one quick second. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about that. But nonetheless, let me make sure I got myself all situated back here. Sorry about that. My kids, they just enjoy being in the lives here this week for some reason. Who knows? But nonetheless, we talked about those scenarios that can happen sometimes. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Have you seen situations like this happen specifically in your lifestyle, in your businesses, or etc. Now, one of the things that can help you start to develop that moral courage is to start understanding you have to make some type of decision making algorithm or some type of decision making tree when these situations come up. Now, one of the things that I talk about a lot on the channel is when you are in these leadership roles, you do have to be pretty decisive, meaning that you have to make decisions pretty quickly when they come up specifically for different situations. Now, I've talked about my decision making algorithm before. So I'll share with you if I was in a moral dilemma and I needed to build up my moral courage, this is exactly how I would do it. One, I would try to find out what's the problem, what's the solution. Like, what is the problem? What's the solution? And in between there, there's a couple things that I need. I need data. So I talk about this a lot on the channel. I need data. I need as much information as possible so that I can know what is the best outcome that can potentially happen from this problem, whatever that problem is. Now, the next step to that I tend to go into, and this is a bit about what Ches has talked about earlier, is you have to determine what is going to be the best outcome for the collective as a whole. Now, this can be your team, this can be your coworkers, this can be your constituents, this can be a lot of people. But what is the best outcome? What is it? What is going to be the best outcome for everybody? Now, sometimes The best outcome for everybody is going to not be the best outcome for you. How many of you have been in situations where that has happened? I have, and I'm sure many of you probably have as well. This is the reason why people struggle with moral courage, because sometimes, even though we feel as if we are making the best decision for everyone else, there is sometimes this very still small voice in our head that says, but what about me? What about me? How is this going to impact me? This is going to hurt me. And sometimes the fear, right? The fear of you being hurt and being in danger is something that you are simply not willing to do. And when these situations happen, this is when people make bad moral decisions. And this is how developing your moral courage will start to impact you if you consistently find yourself in these very difficult situations where you're making those hard decisions and you keep making decisions that are only going to benefit you. They're not going to benefit everyone else. This is the reason why leaders struggle with moral courage. And I share this with you because I do not want you all to struggle with this. I know making decisions as a leader is difficult, and I want to know from you, what are some difficult decisions that you all have made? Put it in the comments below. Let's talk about it. But I don't want you to struggle with this because sometimes decisions like this are very difficult. But ultimately, you have to think of it in this way. This is a guiding statement that I use for myself when I've been in these very, very difficult situations as a senior executive and in other aspects of my life. I think of it as this way: what is the best outcome from the situation? Taking the emotion out of it, meaning I'm taking my emotions out of it. I'm taking my emotions out of it, my biases out of it. What is the best decision that needs to be made? And sometimes this is very, very difficult to do because we are in a place where we just simply want to take care of ourselves. We fear the unknown. I don't want to lose money. I don't want to look bad. I don't want to put myself in a bad position. It will all come down to a couple of the aspects I mentioned earlier in terms of the scenarios that I have seen leaders really struggle as it relates to moral courage. It comes up with finances, it'll come up with their reputations, or it may come up with their own interests. It may not have to do with anything with a monetary attachment to it or monetary value to it. It may not have to do anything with their reputation. It just may be, this is not good for me. This is just not good for me. It's going to disrupt my life. It's going to disrupt my time. It's going to cause unnecessary stress to me. Those are the reasons why people sometimes tend to struggle with moral courage. They have a hard time building that muscle because they have to look out for themselves. And sometimes you need to. So I'll give you an example where you may want to consider this. And thank you for the heart emojis. If you are working in a toxic work environment, okay, let's say if you're working in a very toxic work environment, what do you think is the right moral decision? Is the right moral decision for you to stay on the project because you know the project will probably not be successful if you leave? What's the best decision? If you leave, will it impact the project? Probably. But are you willing to stay in a toxic environment? This is how it can go different ways depending on the actual situation that you're dealing with. All right, let me go to the chat. Chaz Man of Culture says, when you manage projects, you're often forced to offload people to fit a tight manage. It honestly doesn't get easier. That's true. And so I appreciate you mentioning that because when you are in those projects, it does make it really hard because there's a lot of things that you're having to work through. And Chaz, I know you're managing a lot of projects on your end, so it doesn't get any easier. It really doesn't, especially as you're managing. Okay, let me see. Ches also said, sorry, I meant budget. Okay, so let's see. A tight budget. Okay. Yes. And sometimes it's hard when you're in those situations, especially project management. There's a ton of things you have to deal with. You have to deal with personnel, you have to deal with budgets, as Ches mentioned, you have to deal with timelines, you have to deal with exterior clients or stakeholders or board members or etc. There's a lot of things you have to manage, but sometimes it makes it really hard. It really makes it hard. And that is the reason why having some type of decision making algorithm or some process or decision making process that you have, it has to be consistent. And if you can develop that, if you can develop a consistent process to making decisions, it will help you out tremendously. Many people struggle with making decisions as leaders because they do not have a system to do it. I'm sharing with you my system. That is literally what I do when it's a decision. Now, if it's a situation and it's a fire that I'm dealing with, I will go into decision mode. And this is exactly how I make decisions. What's the problem? What's the solution? And how can I get this resolved as quickly as possible? But when I see that it's something that is impacting a group of people, then I have to think of what's the best case scenario or what's best for the collective, what's best for the group, and etc. I have my own decision making system that I use whenever I have hard decisions. Therefore, when those situations come up and you are wondering, okay, well, I don't know what to do. This sounds complicated. What's the right thing to do? What's the wrong thing to do? You have to have a system to help you make those decisions. And when you develop your own internal system, you will be very decisive quick. And that's how people sometimes when you're advancing in leadership roles, they wonder, how do leaders make these decisions so fast? How do they make these decisions so quickly? Because they have a system. They have a system that is in here that they go through really quickly because they have done it so many times. Now, if you are struggling with this and you're struggling with making those decisions, critically thinking through decisions or strategic thinking through decisions, then I encourage you to reach out to me at exciteexcellence.org. I have multiple ways to support you to make those decisions because your ability to think critically and develop moral courage will be that silent skill that defines you as a leader, and it helps you to be able to move forward in your career, in your purpose on this world that you are trying to accomplish. It will help you to generate more income. It'll help you to live the life that you're wanting to have, but you have to have some kind of system. If you go through life and you just kind of just say, well, I don't know, and I don't know what to do, I'm telling you, when you're saying, I know you do not have a system. That's why it's so important to develop one, even when it comes down to those matters of what's right, what's wrong. Is this an emotional issue? Is it not? And etc. Now, I'll share with you personally where I was in a situation, and if you all have been in situations, you're more than welcome to talk about it here on the channel if you feel comfortable doing so. But I was in a situation, and there's a lot of situations I've had moral dilemmas that have came up where I've had to say, this is not the best decision, but I have to make it. Anyways, many years ago, I had a situation happen. I can't go into a ton of detail of it because it has some legal implications attached to it, but I will give you just an overview. Many years ago, I was in a leadership role where we had someone that only basically refused to do a certain aspect of their job, let's say. And in the role that we were in, we were actually taking care of other people. And I needed someone that was going to be able to function in all aspects of their role, not to say I'm only going to do this one thing, because I knew it would not be able to take care of the people that we were trying to take care of. Now, the reason why this became a bit of a moral dilemma for me is because I was relatively new in the role. And this particular individual had caused some problems in the past where they had developed their own executive presence that pretty much everybody was afraid of, except me. I was definitely not afraid. I'm not afraid of anybody. But the people around me that were in leadership roles, they were afraid of this person. They were afraid of this person. They would just pull me to the side and just say, "How are things going with this person?" And just try to find out, were they stressing me out or etc. Now, what happened is there was a situation that occurred and there had to be a decision made about this person. Are we going to keep this person or are we not going to keep this person? Now, in my opinion, I felt as if this person cannot function in the job description that was listed for this person to be able to do all aspects of their role, not just one thing. So we're going from one thing they can do when they should be able to do at least 5 or 10 things. Should we keep this person? And my response was no, this person should not be retained. We need somebody that's going to be able to do a little bit more, not just demand that they only do one aspect of their job. That's not going to help us. Well, the reason why it was a moral dilemma for me is that I just started this role. And how many of you have ever been in new positions or new roles where you come in and you're just kind of walking on eggshells a little bit because you don't want to rock the boat over and just capsize it? I've been in that situation. And so I was just new to this role. And my manager or over who was working with me, my person I was reporting to, simply told me, can't you just let this person just do this one thing? I mentioned to you, I didn't want to do that because I did not think that was what was best for the collective. We're taking care of people. And if this person only says they can only do one thing, then what about the other five things I need them to do? But I was receiving pressure from my manager at the time to say, can't you just let this person just do one thing? Can't they just do one thing? And I had to make the decision. And my decision was either A, I let this person slide and just let them do the one thing that they're asked to do and let them just do the one thing while I sit there and have to do everything else. Or I can make the hard decision and say, I recommend for us to separate from this individual and move forward. Now, what decision do you think that I made? Hopefully, many of you probably know me by now, communicate with me by now. You probably know what decision I ended up making. But this was a tough one because I'm getting pressure from other people. And this is one of those scenarios where I mentioned there's three categories. There's a lot more, but these are the three. I'm gonna walk through each of them. First scenario didn't deal with money with me. This was not a monetary issue whatsoever. It was more of a second one. And I'll tell you because I just started this position and it would reflect negatively on my reputation as a new person in this role for me to have a conversation about separating from someone and I had just started. People don't like when new people start in positions, especially in the leadership role, and you start terminating people. They don't like that. HR doesn't like that. No one likes it. They think, whoa, wait a second. Why are you coming in and just terminating everybody? So I had the reputation part. The reputation. I thought to myself, I could either keep my reputation up here because I was just recruited for this role. They knew I was going to do a great job in it. And I could just let it slide and let this person just do the one thing they wanted to do and continue just living my life and managing the situation. Or I could make that hard decision and do what was in the best interest of the collective. Now, what did I decide to do? This was literally my thought process. I gathered my data. I understood data. This is the data I gathered. I understood that even though it was going to make me look bad, it was going to make me look really bad. And it did. I knew it was going to make me look bad. But the data that I had gathered was that people already had issues with this person to the point where this person scared everybody else, scared people that were that person's boss. They were all terrified of this person. And I knew as a leader, if I continue to say, let's let this person stay, I am going to be dealing with that. And it comes to a point in time when you are in your leadership roles, you have to determine what is worth your time and what is not worth your time. What situations can you deal with, and what situations are going to completely rob you of your sanity? And I decided to let that person go. Now, it was not a popular decision. People did look at me a little differently because there's a lot of things that happened with it. But my reputation went down a little bit because I had just started and I recommended to not keep this person. Now, the good thing is, at least the person that I reported to, even though they gave me a little bit of push to say, why can't you just let them do this one thing? They went ahead and agreed slowly, and we went ahead and moved forward with that specifically in terms of things being terminated. I hate to be vague about it, but I just can't go into a lot of detail on it. But that is a a decision that I had to make morally that made me look bad. It did make me look really bad, everybody. It really did. That made me look bad, but I had to do what was best for the organization as a whole. I could have been the yes ma'am. Okay. I could have been the yes ma'am and said, you know what? Yes. Okay, no problem. Let's let this person do the one thing. I just started this job. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to do a lot of things. I could have done that, but that would not have been the right decision. Now, looking back in retrospect, I'm glad that we did. If that decision would have went in the other direction where we just let the person be there and do the one thing, I promise you everyone, it would have been a nightmare. It was already not, I would say not a nightmare to me because I've dealt with a lot of challenging things. So a lot of stuff, a lot of really hard situations don't bother me, which is the reason why when I talk to you all, I mentioned to you about bring me the hard things because that's what I'm used to dealing with. But if I would have allowed this person to remain there, it would have probably been catastrophic, I believe. And so sometimes as leaders, we know we have to make the hard decisions and it may not look right on us. It may cost us money. It may not be in our best interest, as I mentioned, but sometimes you have to make the right decision. And that's the way you start building your moral courage every little bit at a time. Now, let me know in the comments below, have you all been in situations similar? Maybe you've been in a situation like that where you had to make a hard decision where you lost money. Maybe you were going to look bad like I did, or maybe it was just not in your best interest. Put in the comments below. Let's talk about it. Sometimes when it comes to developing your moral courage, it's very difficult to do so unless you've been in those situations. Now, a secret that I want to share with you that will help you to start learning about these situations is, of course, subscribing to the channel. We talk about these hard topics that come up. But reading books, many people underestimate the power of reading books. When you're reading books by different individuals about complex topics or whatever the case may be that interest you, it allows you to gain insight from someone else's experience that you may not have had or you may never have the ability to have. And reading books is very helpful when these situations. One of the reasons why I'm launching my podcast, hopefully later this year, and if you don't know about the podcast, I'll talk about it really quickly. I'm going to be launching a podcast where I'm going to get leaders from different companies, organizations that have had hard conversations. I genuinely believe that a lot of managers in the world and a lot of leaders in the world today, they know how to communicate well. They're leaders, they know how to communicate well. But there's times when situations occur that they don't know what to do. They don't know how to communicate under pressure because they just simply have not been exposed to it. And my hopes is that if I can bring enough leaders of different organizations to come and speak with me and speak to everyone that listens to the podcast and share with you, these are the really hard leadership decisions I had to make. It will hopefully give you some insight in terms of if you experience these type of situations, you will determine and learn, oh, I remember hearing about someone that dealt with a hard situation and I think I may wanna approach it this way. How many of you think that would be helpful? Let me know in the comments below. That's what I'm working on because these situations, these moral dilemmas, these hard conversations we have as leaderships, as in leadership roles, they really do happen. And a lot of times people struggle with them. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. And if you've ever been in those situations, put in the comments below. So we've talked about a couple aspects as it relates to developing moral courage. We talked about the definition of moral courage. I've given you three scenarios. Now, there's a lot of scenarios, but I've given you three that I thought about very carefully in terms of why people struggle with making the right decision sometimes. And then we talked a little bit about making a system, even if it's a highly emotional issue, heightened state of crisis. It doesn't matter. You have to have a systematic way to make decisions. I've given you what I do specifically, and I've talked about a lot on the channel. And then also, I've shared with you a personal story that was a moral dilemma for me that impacted me in terms of my reputation, but I did what was best for the collective. Okay, Chaz Man of Culture says, when you're making these difficult decisions, should okay, when you're making this difficult decision, how it affects you personally be a part of your thought process. It should be, and only reason I say that is because you can't just ignore you. You can't just ignore you. Now, I can say you can ignore yourself, but you still have to think about yourself. And a lot of times, Ches, it's going to depend on the situation that you are dealing with. If you think of it as an executive, executives, we tend to make decisions and we try to take ourselves out of it. Because if you take yourself out of it, you will likely make the most unbiased decision, because we as individuals, as humans, we have our own biases that we've dealt with all of our lives. However, if you factor in yourself, you have to do that to a certain extent, but then there comes a point in time, Ches, where you have to determine, am I going to let myself get in the way of making the right decision, or I'm going to not let myself get in the way of making the right decision. And you have to factor yourself in too, but just know that that's a part of it. So, for instance, when I had that situation that I just mentioned, I factored in myself. I was going to have a bad reputation for recommending to separate from this person. I did factor into me personally. I had to. And this is the reason why I mentioned sometimes these three areas: finance, your reputation, and your interests will factor into people making those very good or very bad moral decisions as leaders. And I thought about myself. I thought about, well, how's this going to make me look? How is this going to make me look? But even after going through that, I still had to make the decision. So, yes, you have to factor yourself in. It has to be a part of it. And it's something that you don't want to neglect, because you can't neglect yourself. Just have it in the back of your mind, but you still have to think of it as, what's the most objective way that I can make this decision? Take yourself out. If I took myself out of this decision, what would be the best course of action? So you still have to think about yourself, but it should factor into your decision depending on the topic. Now, as I mentioned, if you're in a very toxic work environment and things are not the way that they should be, you have to factor in yourself. I hope that makes sense. There's certain situations where you personally are going to have a bit heavier weight than it will be in others. It just depends on the type of situation that you're dealing with. But ultimately, you as the individual will factor into all of those decisions because you are directly involved in it. It's just a matter of, how big do you want yourself to be in this decision? Do you need to play this really big role, or does your role need to be a little bit further back in this case? And that will help you to make that decision in terms of, well, how am I going to have this work for me personally? I can tell you countless situations that have came up for me where I made the right decision and I've made the wrong decision. But this is a really great topic, and I appreciate Cat 23rd for mentioning this topic, because these are the skills that help you to become a leader. We talk heavily on communication on this channel, but there's aspects of communication that are directly tied to how you make decisions as a leader. And if you can make a decision as a leader that is morally right, then you should be able to communicate that to other people. Now, I'll give you another aspect of that, where people have made not right decisions. I've been in situations where people have had conversations with other people that did not involve a specific party, and it was the wrong moral decision, but they didn't let the person know about it. And so that adds another level of complexity to it too, because you have people basically making decisions for you, but they're not telling you about it, and these are bad decisions. There's all type of things that can happen when you're trying to develop moral courage. The key is to know your ability to develop moral courage is truly a silent skill that defines great leaders. There are so many leaders out there that have made really hard decisions and have made some of the best impacts on the world. There's so many things that happen to a lot of individuals to where it may be a hard decision, but when you look back on it in retrospect, you say, this was the absolute best decision that I made. I knew the decision that I made, especially many, many years after I'd already been in the role, when I look back on it, things would not have grown to where I made millions of dollars and did all those things for that organization if I would have had that person there. It would not have happened. It would have been an issue. And sometimes it's like that. This is how you start to develop your moral courage. Now, I'm curious to know, what are some situations that you all have dealt with specifically as it relates to moral decisions, when you've had to make really hard situations, or just have those really tough conversations? Let us know in the comments below. As I mentioned, a lot of people watch the live videos. on live, but a lot of people do watch the replays. So this is an opportunity to let the audience know so that we can grow and learn together as it relates to this topic. Now, there's several things that we've talked about today. There's a couple things that I'm working on, as I've mentioned to you before. I'm working on a pre-recorded videos, getting back into the swing of that. I've announced the live schedule, so the live schedule is on the communities tab. If there's a way I can post or pin that post, I have to figure it out. So it's at the top so you all know when I will be live. Hopefully that will help you all know when to join if you can. I have my mini ebook I'm going to be releasing as soon as I get landing pages and all that together. I'm hoping to be working on that within over this next week to finalize that so I can share it with you all. And then I have my book I'm working on as it relates to executive presence. We're developing that. I do have another YouTube channel that I'm going to be working on that is going to be a bit different. It's going to be about a couple things I'm doing personally as it relates to working on my Porsche Cayman and bringing it back to life where it needs to be. It's a car that I enjoy, and it's not exactly where I want it to be, but it has a story with it, and that story is definitely more of a personal story, but you'll learn a lot more about me outside of the role I'm in right now in terms of my business. So it'll be a fun channel if you want to join. When I launch that and I announce that, let me know. It will be fun because there's a lot of things I plan on doing with the vehicle, and you'll get to see it change over into a different type of car in terms of how it appears right now compared to the way that it will be hopefully in the future. So those are a couple things I'm working on. I'm really excited to be able to provide you all with some more content. I'm hoping to work on my shorts a lot more, to upload more. I'm just really excited for the growth of the channel, and I appreciate you all so much for being here and being an amazing part of my life and growing the channel to where we are right now. We're really getting very, very close to that huge YouTube milestone of 1,000 subscribers. As I've mentioned to many of you before, some of you have your own YouTube channel. When you go from 0 to 1,000, it is not like any other social media platform out there. It's just not. Yeah, it takes a lot. It takes a little bit of time, and you'll see content creators out there that have millions of subscribers and etc. Everybody starts at 0, friends, just like it is when you're starting a business. And so you have to work your way up. But I appreciate you all sharing the content with some of your families and your friends and your colleagues to help them develop themselves and be able to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure. All right, let me go to the chat. Chaz Man of Culture says, how far are you with the book, if I may ask? So the very mini ebook I have that has the high stakes communication assessment in it, that's completely done. I'm just working on the landing pages and getting that funnel type situation figured out for that. The other book, the one I'm working on as executive presence, I would say at least close to half of it done. There are a couple aspects of it that I do want to add, and I really want to make this the only executive presence book you ever need to read because I see how executive presence, the term itself, is placed in a more academic format where it's almost like this complex topic that no one understands. And I do believe that I can provide a unique perspective to share with you the good decisions I've made, the bad decisions I've made, to help everyone that reads the book to learn that executive presence is something that you can learn how to master. It's not a matter of just how you look and what you say. It's your ability to be able to influence other people. And so that is something I'm working on. So Chaz, I'm about halfway through it right now. I want to wrap it up probably within the next, I would say, 1 to 2 months in terms of just the general content. Then it'll go into formatting. Then I'm going to publish it more than likely on Amazon and online, and then get bound copies or hard copies of the book. So it's a little bit of a process, but I want it to be the only executive presence book you have to read. And so I'm taking my time, really thinking about what I've experienced over the past 20 years because no one told me what executive presence was, and I didn't know anything about it. And I developed it myself, and I have I would say a very good executive presence, but I didn't always have this. This is something I really had to cultivate and develop just by trial and error. And I just want to make sure it's as detailed as possible, but not so detailed to where it's long. I want it to be really a book that you could sit and read relatively quickly so that you can gain some insight and some aspects that maybe I don't get to talk about in detail as it relates to being on the channel, but some aspects of my life that maybe you didn't know about that you wonder, wow, why? I wonder how did you get to this? This is the reason why, and this is some things that you can do to help you start being that leader that really stands out from everybody else. Many people talk about executive presence and they say, "Oh, it's a myth. It's like a mystical unicorn that no one has ever seen." Well, most of the time when people talk about that, they have had struggles with developing it in themselves, and it really comes down to your ability to influence and impact other people as a leader. That's my humble definition of it. I just genuinely believe people make it too complicated. And this all ties into how you can become a great leader, how you can really be that exceptional leader by learning how to develop yourself as a leader and really maintain that executive presence. So, soon and very soon, hopefully, I will have that completed. As soon as I'm finished with it, I'll give you all updates as I go along the way, and then when I'm at the point where I'm ready to send it out to everyone to publish it, then I will definitely share it to everyone here. I will be live tomorrow evening. So tomorrow evening, on Friday evenings are Q&A. So I do Q&A on the lives quite a bit, but Friday evenings I really want to spend more time with you all with your questions, your situations that you're dealing with specifically. So if you have anything that you want to talk about, you're welcome to send me a message on any social media platform. I'll be happy to talk about your question, even if you can't attend. And you're always welcome to join live and ask any questions as it relates to anything that you're dealing with, specifically on a professional level that you're trying to navigate, and maybe you're just not quite sure how to do it. That's what Friday night Q&As are for. So let me know how I can support you. If there's any other type of content you want to see on the channel, please feel free to let me know. Feel free to share this information with anyone else. And if you are new to the channel, there's several videos that I would highly recommend for you to watch so you can start developing these advanced communication skills under pressure. Any video that talks about maintaining eye contact, moderating or changing your tone of voice, controlling your facial expressions, controlling your body language, and managing your emotions under pressure will help you to start slowly incorporating the way you can start to communicate under pressure so that you're not the person that is caught off guard or that freezes in front of other people when they ask a question. Let me know how I can support you, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now.